Welcome to Greenable Woodbridge. I am your host, Carolyn Ehrlich. Today we have an amazing guest, and I am really excited. I was thinking to myself, we have lots of local celebrities,
Sure.
but you're the first, out-of-town celebrity.
Oh, no, hardly.
So we're
yes.
really excited about having you here. So Michael Littig is the co-founder of the Zuckerberg Institute, and your partner in that is Randy Zuckerberg, who is the sister of Mark, who started Facebook. So we can have this whole interview and who you are in context.
Yes.
But to start off, let's talk a little bit about who you are and the Institute, how you got involved with it, what your mission is, and then we'll get on to talking about what we're going to work on together.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm so grateful to be here, first of all. Thank you so much. I think I'm someone, I imagine you're the same. I always like to talk about the people I get to surround myself with. So before talking about myself, I'll talk about Randy and how I fit into that mission of what we're attempting to do. So Randy Zuckerberg was an early employee at Facebook. She was one of the first hires when it was above a Chinese restaurant in Silicon Valley. She was brought on to head up marketing at Facebook and helped grow Facebook until it went public. She was also the creator of Facebook Live, which is now in the hands of billions of people around the world, which to me sometimes, imagine a dear friend of yours helped almost change the face of
Absolutely.
The world, right?
Yeah.
So she is my hero. She is our CEO. She is the one that came with the idea of the Institute. And really, it came out of her experience of being in Silicon Valley and often being the only female in the room, in these boardrooms, where she felt a call to really take ownership over what she perceived to be a problem, right? And we'll talk more about this in a moment, because this is really at the core of what we're doing. And she started Zuckerberg Media to really change the face of innovation. And under that mission, the Institute is really the community education builder around that mission. So we really function as a way to arm high school students with entrepreneurial thinking, ideas around innovation, but ultimately how to be a leader, how to become the person you want to be. That's what it really comes down to, right? And so that's what I'm passionate about.
Right.
Like in my life, I've had the pleasure to work around the world in community with people, to build community, to learn, to teach, to mentor with refugees in the Horn of Africa, to nomads in the steppe of Mongolia. But amongst all those common worlds, we'll call them, is one thing, is community is a key for survival. And so in starting the Institute, we wanted to create a place where people felt like they belonged, right? Often being an entrepreneur or being an innovator doesn't mean you have to code, doesn't mean you have to
right.
anything. It's something that it's really about who do you want to become and who do you want to be, and that you too are invited to that table. So we really attempt to create a community that people feel like they belong. And that's my mission in life. I want to create communities where people feel like they belong.
That's great. And I have to tell you, Woodbridge welcomes you to our community with your idea of bringing community together, and your thoughts about what for our students it's just so perfect. And actually, whether you're a student or somebody my age, which is 70 already, you're still trying.
Really?
You're still trying to be that person. You're always trying to recreate. So that's a wonderful, wonderful concept. But what we're doing together is multifaceted.
Yeah.
So one is with the students.
Yep.
But part of it is that you're bringing the students to help our businesses.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a philosophy that I think many of us have to hold on to right now is that out of the depths of a crisis rises some phenomenal opportunities and great ideas, and that's something the Zuckerberg Institute believes in, and you have brought some of those ideas to us to help our students to help our businesses.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could just go into a little bit more detail of how that's going to work.
Yeah, I want to zero in on that statement. Out of the depths of something that's really hard, crisis, there's opportunity. I believe of all the people I get to meet, you know, major founders, people that are leaders in business, is everyone's going to fail. Everyone are always going to have to face problems. It's how you face those problems, right? And if we look at the future of education, in 20 years, the students that we will be working with, we don't know the jobs that they're going to have. I'm deeply passionate about the future. And so really it's about teaching those students how to handle crisis, how to ask questions, how to communicate, how to listen. Because at the center of anything you can teach anyone in these days is really less about skill-based, it's more about how they respond to problems, Carol Dweck is an amazing researcher, talks about the growth mindset, right? And the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset says, oh, there's all these problems, I can't do anything. A growth mindset goes, I love problems. It's like you, Carol, you're an example of someone who loves problems, loves solving problems. So really at the core of what we're doing with these students is beginning to help them adapt to that mindset, to be someone who goes, I love problems. I can't wait to solve this problem. And I don't have the answers, but I know a collective of people, people that share like-minded values, that see and observe the problem, we can come together and we can solve them. So that's really the core of what we're doing. So what we call it is the post-pandemic task force. I just like that branding. I think it's cool.
I do too.
But the question becomes is that I think we should, in this moment, when we're all facing problems, we're all facing a crisis in some form, is it starts in our own community. Often it starts in your own home, right, at the end of the day. And so, you have a circle, which is your home, then you have a circle, which is your community. And what is your community? Who are the businesses that live in your community? How can you support them? How can you begin to think of something greater than yourself in some form? So once you begin to adopt that mindset, really anything's infinite, right? You can go on to, I have friends that I'm an artist in residence with the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the MIT Media Space Lab. And so I get to surround myself with really cool people, like I said in the beginning. And they're always asking big questions. And so I want to bring these students together and I want to ask big questions together. So we'll start there. We'll bring these businesses that we're going to be working with, and then we'll start to ask, how can we help solve these problems that these businesses are facing? Some of these businesses that they're facing, it's not a simple well, obviously you just need to have a social media account and e-commerce and that's it, and we've buttoned it up. It's much, I think it's different than that. And what I found working with high school students is that they have more innovative solutions than I could ever imagine.
And just give them the opportunity.
Exactly. Give them the agency. Turn to them as a colleague and really put them at the center of solving the problem. And frankly, this is the future of education.
Right.
So I work with the ASU Interplanetary Initiative, which works with NASA. And they're really beginning to amplify this narrative that putting students at the center of problem solving and treating them as colleagues versus treating them as, oh, I'm just going to teach them these certain skills, even though I really don't know the answer. Let's say, I don't know the answer. What do you think, dear colleague? How would you solve that? And so it's amazing what they'll come up with. And so we did a pilot project of this back in June, back in the summer, where we basically invited people of certain industries, right? So the dean of NYU, we invited people that head up the travel industry, people that were heading up the restaurant industry, and we asked the students to pitch their solutions to these people.
Oh, wow. It's kind of like TED Talk.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really powerful. And the thing that was missing for me, and why I came to Woodbridge particularly, is I wanted it to have real life stakes, right? This is not an idea that like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had virtual reality and we could all like, you're like, sure, that's a great idea. That costs millions of dollars. Well, what's going to happen when we work with a local business in Woodbridge and it's around the corner from your home? And that these people need to feed their families. They have people on their payroll. And I believe and I know that these kids will rise to the occasion. So that's the post-pandemic task force. I talked very generally around the concepts of it. We can get into more gritty details in a moment if you like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is great. And I know it's kind of has two phases.
Yeah.
One, it's going to be a pilot where you're going to bring a leadership group in to two businesses that we've selected. And then the next part is going to be with our own students and our own businesses, which is pretty exciting. And they're all really looking forward to it. So do you want to take a minute to talk about the pilot and then get into...
Yeah, I'll talk about the two phases of the program in a way. So really the first phase is allowing them to have an experience of what it means to be a leader. So having conversations around what does it mean to have, take personal accountability? What does it mean to be a good listener? What does it mean to ask open-ended questions? What does it mean to have courage, right? These concepts that seem so big, but when you start to bring these high school students into these conversations, that's really what it takes to really be an innovator, an entrepreneur. We're also gonna do, back at Facebook back in the day, they did these things called hackathons. So hackathons were, you would just bring them together overnight, be like 24 hours, and they would get to work on anything they wanted to work on outside their job. And this is where Randy created Facebook Live. She came up with the idea, she did it in a broom closet. Her parents tuned in, there was only 2 people that tuned in. And then a week later, Katy Perry called her up on the phone and was like, hey, would you like to announce, I would like to announce my new album on Facebook Live. And instead of Randy saying, well, no, that was just a bad idea, she was like, what would my male colleagues say in this moment? She was like, yes, I think that's a great idea. We're going to do this. And she built it. She built it, made it happen. They launched Katy Perry's album. So the fact that a student can go through that process as well and say that you could be sitting on an idea that could begin to affect billions of people. So we'll walk them through that process. They'll get the opportunity to begin to pitch their ideas to the business, to get feedback, to bring in mentors from other people within our Silicon Valley network to help mentor them, to ask, again, not to give them the answers, because frankly, let's be honest, Carol, we all don't know the answers. Like we're trying to figure it out, but we're going to facilitate, help them ask better questions. Help them acknowledge them and say, that's a great idea. Because what is it at the core? So if I go back to, I mentioned I work with refugees. What does a refugee want more than anything in the world? They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be validated. They want to make sure that they feel like they matter. And what does a student want? They want to feel like they matter, right? What does a business want? They want to feel like they matter to their community. So really, at the core, it's these human interactions. So that's the kind of first part of the curriculum, is teaching them how to really be leaders, how to be entrepreneurs, how to be investors, how to be inventors. And then the second half is really start to ask, how do we solve these problems with the businesses? So in our pilot project, we want to begin to do that in a very small way. We have 2 businesses we're working with. We're super excited, a limo company and a cafe. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But to really begin to say, what are the questions we're asking? What are the students doing? How are they solving these big questions, these big problems? And then rallying the community behind them. So at the end of the day, what is business? It's about getting people to believe in what your product and what you're selling. And what does that entail? That entails sometimes going door to door. Sometimes it starts to get your family involved, to get your friends involved. So can you see how it's like a microcosm to a macrocosm? that what I always love about working with someone like Randy, who helped start Facebook, is that started out of her brother's dorm. That started out as a small idea that continued to grow. Why can't someone from Woodbridge have that idea, right?
Absolutely.
Without giving the agency, without someone saying to them, you matter. Hey, I see you. That's a great idea.
Right.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. Because for me, I didn't really believe I was an entrepreneur until Randy, I had built 3 businesses by that time. I had built a nonprofit that was working in a refugee camp. I had built an acting company, a coaching company. But I just liked building community. But one day, Randy, who I think is like, I mean, come on, like she's like the top, like to me, she's like my hero. She says, hey, you're an entrepreneur. I think you'd be great at teaching entrepreneurship. And I was like, entrepreneurship? I was like, I don't know how to code. And I want to give students the same experience because that would have saved me so much time over the past 20 years.
Right.
If someone would have said, you're a leader, hey, you have a great idea, you should build a business out of it. And that can change people's lives in that way.
Right.
So it all comes down to really, to me, is to saying to these students that we get to work with, these businesses, you matter. We believe in you. Let's go solve this, So that's what we're going to do.
That is great. So, in Woodbridge for many years now, we've had a buy local program.
Yeah.
And we push, buy local, because if we don't shop there, then it's not going to be there.
Of course.
And so this is really taking that buy local movement 10 steps forward.
Yeah.
And not only buy, but invest in our mind, in our energy, in our innovations, and having our students invest in our local businesses.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're going to make happen. Before we sat down here, we were talking about a town meeting.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you are going to be having. We picked 15 students.
Yep.
Or I actually think it's students that volunteered to be part of this program. I shouldn't say we picked because we didn't pick anybody.
Yeah.
They said, oh, this sounds really great.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And from each of the high schools. And you're going to have an introductory town meeting. It'll be virtual with them. And so tell us what we can expect, because the students are really waiting for this.
And I encourage anyone to come to that town hall. For me, it's really an opportunity to not only to begin to say hello to my future colleagues, right? So going back, I always like, how in your life you can always trace it back to certain things. Like in the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about working with refugees, or I was talking about working with nomads in Mongolia. Is like, that may seem like this kind of like out of a book or something, but really what those individuals, they've always been my teachers to me. They taught me is that once you begin a conversation in a community, you're always with that community. So guess what? I'm always going to be here.
Great, that's the best news I've had all day.
Because at the end of the day, like, you open a commitment, right? And you can't turn your back on that. And so my hope is that I open up a future commitment to these future colleagues to say, great, hi, welcome. We're so excited. Randy's going to be there to really begin to tell these stories. Again, like I may have alluded to some of the stories that she would tell, but when I hear the days of her being at Facebook when the Arab Spring was going on, or where she got to interview Barack Obama, or again, this is a human being. It's something that I believe if a student hears that, they can go, oh right, I can do that too. And so the more we can create those opportunities to get people involved, to begin to ask questions, to talk about the program, to begin to hear about the problems that we're facing, so we can begin to start to think, well, gosh, how are we going to solve those? Like, what are we going to do? That's what really the town hall is about. It's a galvanizing moment. It's a moment of coming into community and to really beginning to ask, what's our first question to ask? What's the first problem we need to solve? And for people to hear a little bit more about what we do at the Institute and how excited and how grateful we are for this. This is like the light of my year knowing that this has been happening. And seriously, talking with you, I just want to applaud Woodbridge for what you do and who you are. Because I know, you can go to any town across the US and there are certain towns that, maybe they're struggling for other ways, but to meet people that are like-minded and to begin to work together, that's what it all comes down to.
Right.
Find your people.
Find your
right?
people.
That's what I'll teach those students.
Yeah, and to bring it to the students is so very, very important.
Yeah.
Because for many of them, especially now that education has been remote, they're not getting that, I'm assuming that they're not getting that kind of personal mentoring that they would have been getting from their teachers. And it's just so difficult. So this gives them the opportunity to hear somebody say, this is how you are a leader. You are a leader.
Yeah.
And you have great ideas. I don't think there's a high school student that hasn't, that's sat back and said, boy, I wish I could do this.
Yeah.
Here's a business that, boy, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
And what you're coming in and saying, hey,
do it.
You can.
Yeah.
Do it. And
Great.
these are the tools, and this is how you do it.
Yeah. And when you fail, I'll be right there.
Right.
And I just want to pinpoint something you said so beautifully, Carol. It's like, at the end of the day, all students that I've come across, they want to help. They want to be of service. They just don't have the outlet for it, right?
Exactly.
Especially in this moment. I was talking with a dear friend of mine. He calls it a crisis of leadership, because it's almost people don't know how to react, right? So sometimes it takes creating an excuse, a program like this, to say, here's an opportunity. Here's your opportunity to take an action. So if anybody's listening out there, if you're a student and you say, I want to do something, this is the program for you. And the hope is that we continue to do this program multiple times, because it's not going to get solved in 3 months, right? 3 months is we can do a lot in 3 months, but we will only begin to scratch the surface. And my hope is that if you build it, they will come, right? If you build the opportunity where they can be the problem solvers, the students that I work with blow my mind. And I know the Woodbridge students will be the same.
They definitely will.
They will come up with ideas. I was like, never could have thought of that. None of these major business consultant people could never have thought of that. Let's go solve this. And let me introduce you, this is what we do at the Institute, let me introduce you to people that can help you and mentor you in that. And I just look back when I was a kid, could you imagine if someone was like, oh, you get to meet with this person, I'd be like, what? That's so amazing, But it's amazing what we can do in this world nowadays, where we can really start to connect people up. And again, it's gonna sound like I'm a broken record, make them feel seen.
Yes.
Make people feel seen. That's what it comes down to. So I think that's an honor and a privilege, and to do it alongside you, I think that's where I'm supposed to be.
That is great.
Yeah.
So you've touched on so many things that I want to continue on, and I think one of them is that we have these first 15 students.
Yeah.
And we will not only learn how to help businesses, help the students be everything that the leaders and the innovators and everything that they should be. How do we then take that to the next 15 and keep that going to more students, more businesses, and perpetuate it?
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation. I think the parents need to get involved in some form, and whether that's just supportive. I think the students are going to have the answer.
Oh, there you go.
I really believe that. What I've always found is that I'll come into a student, I'll be like, oh, you should do this. They're like, Mr. Littig, that doesn't work anymore. We're on to other things. And they understand community in different ways. So I'm going to really first propose that to them, because, again, it goes back to whenever I've worked in communities around the world, I always say, I know that they have the answers better than I could ever come up with. I just need to, in some way, help facilitate it. So that's one way. The other way is, what I get really excited about, is I believe mentorship doesn't happen overnight. Right? There's so many teachers right now that work in your school district that they are mentored to those students for years. And so my hope is that I always say to all my students, okay, we're meeting, hi, nice to meet you, but we're here for the next 5 years if you so choose it. I'm here. So, how can I support you? How can I help you? And I would really like to invite the first 15 students to somehow become leaders in the second group, and then to become leaders in the next group.
That's exactly
right?
what I was hoping to
Yeah,
hear.
me too. Like, because that's a sustainable way.
Right.
Because then they have ownership over it. Mm-hmm. Like, you and I could, till the day's end, be like, we think the program should do this and this and this, and the students don't have buy-in. If they don't want to do it, it won't happen.
Exactly.
And really, again, that's why I'm so excited about this program, is that we're going to them and saying, hey, here's the deal. This business over here really matters. Let me introduce you to their mission. This is their dream. They started this. They took a risk. Let's get you to get involved with them. And I believe when you start to work like that in a service mindset, you start to see that it is almost, it's a way to like combat any sense of loneliness. Mm-hmm. It's a way to make you feel meaningful. It's a way to make your life begin to almost light up. I can only speak for myself. I know you're a public servant, so you feel the same way, right? Is that I feel better when I'm helping people.
That we have like 30 seconds left.
Oh,
and that
gosh,
is
we
like
can go,
such
keep going.
a great way,
Yeah.
a great note, because that is, I usually say, what is your one last thought that you want to leave with this show? And that.
Gratitude. I'm grateful that Woodbridge trusts the Zuckerberg Institute. I'm grateful that you trust me. I'm grateful that these students trust me. I don't take that lightly. No. And I really believe that this community has incredible resources. And my hope is that we can come in and begin to unlock that, to make it feel seen, to make it feel validated, and to give it wings in some way. Not to be, I love poetry, but not to be too poetic about it, but like to give it wings, to amplify it, to say, hey, this matters. And then to begin to tell that story.
And conversely, I mean, we are just so honored and feel so fortunate to have you and the people you surround yourself with come to us and kind of bring your community and our community together and make it one great community. And we're really, really looking forward to working with you in our first town hall meeting.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Greenable Woodbridge and being part of the excitement and part of the change.